London is not just some city. Its spirit stands outside of time. Certain places have influenced its citizens. It is not only a setting, but a presence, a character in various films, novels, and poems. My name is Philip Röttgers, and I search for London's spirit. I think there are two particular ways to explore the powerful and mysterious place that is London: through literature and through walking. Follow me into a secret world. Follow me to London beyond time and place. In this series, I will explore its spirit by walking the city and talking to London enthusiasts. I invite you to join me. Together, we will discover London beyond time and place. This is Talks Beyond Time and Place. Hello everybody to Talks Beyond Time and Place. My name is Philip Röttgers and my guest today is Stephen Saleh. And hello Stephen. Stephen is the author of Dark Lines of London. I'm going to show it here into the camera. It's a time-traveling supernatural and historical thriller, but it's not a novel, it's a comic written by Tony Lee. We'll talk about this in a minute, and with illustrations by Mariela Malova. I hope I pronounced her name correctly.
Yeah.
And the story of Dark Lines of London, well, basically there are two stories set in different times, and they weave together. And the one story is set in 1589, or starts in 1589, when Queen Elizabeth I is at the end of her reign, and the so-called School of Night makes plans for the future of the British Empire. And the group consists of Francis Walsingham, his daughter Frances, Sir Walter Raleigh, Christopher Marlowe, Thomas Harriot, and of course Doctor John Dee, who is one of the main protagonists of the comic. And the other story is set in 2019, and the main protagonist there is the English literature's graduate Sam Carter, who finds a message in an ancient copy of Dee's Mona's Hieroglyphica that warns him of the School of Night's plan to destroy the world in 2020. And he finds a way to converse with Dr. Dee in the past, and together they plan to save the world. So when I read this summary and a bit more, I was intrigued by the inclusion of ley lines in London, of Dr. Dee, and also by the fact that the main protagonist is an English literature student, just like I was a couple of years ago. So I really wanted to talk to the man behind the story, Stephen Saleh. So welcome, Stephen. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here, actually. So that was a really nice summing up, actually. So that's very good.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that I did that right.
Yeah. Just one thing, actually, before you say it was the story dealt with big disaster in 2020. The book was published in 2019, and then at the start of 2020, I did actually have some readers getting in touch with me, actually worried. They were saying, "Oh my God, are the John Dee prophecies that you spoke about in your book, were they actually real?" People were actually concerned that they were real, and I was like, "Oh God, what have I done here?" I actually started getting a little bit worried because it was actually coming true, parts of it.
But I mean, the world it wasn't destroyed, and London wasn't destroyed. There was no big bang that.
Yeah, exactly. I imagine I could have, I could have been responsible for that. So
no, you weren't responsible. I mean, there was no big bang in Trafalgar Square and things like that, so everything's fine. But the pandemic came. maybe there was another thing by the School of Night. So before we go into the story, into the detail, my first question would actually be, because this is Talks Beyond Time and Place by London Beyond Time and Place. So of course we're already, London is also, or not also, but already always in the center of these talks. So my question is, are you a born Londoner?
I am actually, yeah. I was born very close to where the book is set, in East London, in Stepney. And I was born there, and I currently live in Greenwich, which again is, in the heart of the of where the book is set. So you live in Blackheath, where the ley line finishes. So it's really strange to me that you know, I never intentionally went out to write a book about, you know, where I'm from and the area where I grew up and lived most of my life. And it just generally happened. And right now, even I'm actually enrolled as a full-time student in the University of Greenwich.
Oh, yeah.
Because I enjoyed writing this book so much, I decided I wanted to go to a university and do it properly. And so, yeah, I'm actually doing creative writing in the University of Greenwich, which the ley line passes right through, you know, which is a key building. And again, I didn't specifically want to go to Greenwich University. It's just when I started applying, that's the one that came to me. So it was like so many incredible coincidences have happened to me since I started writing this book.
Yeah,
yeah, amazing.
Coincidence or not, maybe it was just some kind of maybe
something.
there was some force behind it, some magic.
I'm absolutely
Who knows?
Absolutely a believer of that for sure.
Yeah, but great. I mean, it's great. I mean, I think Greenwich University, there's worse place to study than than there.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were born in London and you live in London, as you just say. And I mean, of course, this whole story, the whole comic, it deals very much with London and with London history, or not very much, but it's clearly it's part of the story. So have you always been a kind of London historian, or did this come when you wrote the book? Wrote the story.
I guess I've always had an interest in it. You know, when I think back to when I was young, it was always there. You know, I always loved history. I always loved the unusual, if you like. I don't want to say the occult. I'm trying to think like, you know, the eclectic, you know, unusual things, legends, the mythology, and I suppose because this book actually, I know it's not a big book, but I was actually researching it for about 10 years before it actually came to print. So you know, it took forever because as I was digging, there was much more coming out. So you know, this was the first opportunity I had to actually you know, really indulge myself in the interest, you know, and really do proper research and you know, really get involved with it. Go to the various sites, dig around, you know, try and dig out old books, old manuscripts, try and find out. So yeah, I mean, it was great. Absolutely loved it. Yeah.
I talked to some people and some writers also, and I include myself in this. I sometimes think the research part is, I mean, it's most of the time it's you do more research than what you need in the end and what you use in the end.
Yeah.
But it's almost it's as fun as writing itself, because it's so interesting to delve into these.
Undoubtedly, yeah. Just to find all these, you know, disparate pieces of information and then find ways of knitting them all together, and just one thing leads to another, and the more you dig, the more you know, the more you find. It just goes on forever and ever. Absolutely, yeah. I think I probably had enough to write 4 or 5 books in the end.
Yeah, great. Well, it's even better. Then we can probably expect more from you. So I think this was your first book, your first work. So can you tell me a bit how and when you started writing your own fiction and how this started, basically?
Yeah, well, it kind of, as I say, it was about 10 years ago, maybe even a bit longer now. But yeah, around that time, I remember reading a really bizarre story about a place on the Isle of Dogs. I don't know if you know the Isle of Dogs in East London. The Isle of Dogs is a really unusual shaped piece of land, like a U shape with the river bending around it. And I read it was actually the front page of a local newspaper.
I think someone described it as one testicle. I don't know who, but someone.
One testicle, yeah. Okay.
I read this somewhere.
I'll make a note of that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, strangely enough, the front page of the story called it the omphalos, and that's a Greek word meaning belly button. And the Greeks used to use that to refer as a central location. So the center of the country, the center of the continent, the center of, you know, wherever it may be, the omphalos, and it would be like a holy place, very key. This paper described a legend that the Isle of Dogs was the omphalos of the British Empire. And they spoke about a legend. It's funny actually, because this was on the front page of as I say, an archived newspaper. I remember reading it, and I've never been able to find it again since. I've been looking for it for so long, never been able to find it again. And it spoke about John Dee. If you go to the Isle of Dogs, and it's on the ley line that we'll speak about later, there's there's a kind of a stone circle in the middle of Mudchute Park. Mudchute is a beautiful park in the middle of this rural setting. You know, they've got animals, they've got cows, sheep, all sorts. It's a lovely place to go walking. Anyway, in the middle of this, there's a kind of a stone circle on the floor. Nobody knows, you know, why it's there, where it came from, anything about it, but it's still there and it's really well preserved. And the paper spoke about how John Dee conjured a demon on that spot, kind of like, and created a kind of Faustian pact to get his help to create the British Empire. And that's the spot where he did the deal. I read another legend where he demonstrated his skills to Christopher Marlowe on that spot, and kind of attacked him, psychic attacked, killed him there, and then they pretended that he was actually killed in Deptford, just up the road.
Right.
So yeah, the place is like full of myths. I can't find any proof, obviously, that any of them are real, but that's what kind of triggered my interest. So then I started reading about John Dee, and literally I started finding out so many unusual things in that area, and along this line, as we'll cover shortly. And yeah, and I just started writing down information with no, at that point I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm going to write a book. I just started finding information, started researching it, writing it down. You know, within about a year or so, I had like reams of information. And then I thought, you know what, this could be a great film. This could be a really good film, you know.
Yeah.
Better than the Da Vinci Code, I'm sure, you know, because it's all based, you know, lots of reality. And I thought, oh, I'm going to make a film. But then obviously realized that that was a ridiculous idea, and decided I was going to write a book. But then quickly realized I wasn't, you know, good enough writer to write a novel. So then settled on writing a graphic novel instead. So yeah, and that's how that finally came about all those years later.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I wanted to ask if you planned in doing it as a comic right away, or if it started as a novel, basically.
Yeah, the idea was a novel, but you know, it's really hard work writing a novel. It's yeah, maybe when I finish my degree, I'll be able to do it. But yeah,
maybe.
So maybe, but yeah, you know what? And I love the fact that it came out as a graphic novel because it's a totally different genre. It's very visual,
right?
You know, and working with Mariela, the artist, she was fantastic. I gave her free license, you know, just as you already mentioned. I spoke with Tony Lee at the time, and because I got the story, I had it written down, and I thought, oh God, you know, I had no idea what to do. I'd never done this before, and so I looked around to try and find, and again, this is another one of these incredible coincidences. I thought, you know what, I need someone who's in the industry. I need someone who can help me.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing here. And completely at random, I looked around and I thought, you know, I want someone to be preferably a Londoner, to be British, because it's a very British, you know, story, and somebody who's got experience. So I looked around and I kind of read about Tony Lee, who's very established in the field, and he'd worked on things like Robin Hood and Sherlock Holmes and Spider-Man and all sorts of things. And I just emailed him out of the blue and said, you know, would you be interested in providing me with some consultancy for this? You know, I've got this story about John Dee. And he wrote back, he's a big fan of John Dee. He was thinking of writing a book about John Dee himself. You know, he already knew a lot about him. And literally we met up. He read the story and said, yes, 100%, absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, so so I teamed up with him. He you know, he formatted it. He introduced me to the publishers. He gave a lot of guidance to Mariela, who, you know, it's her first time doing this kind of thing as well. So yeah, the three of us put together this book, and I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, and you can be. It's great. And yeah, I can imagine, because sometimes this is what I also think. So, do I write a novel? I've started some things, and I also had the thought, maybe I should do a graphic novel or a comic, but then I would maybe have the story, and I would need someone to basically translate it into a comic version.
Exactly, because it's the whole format. You have to be very careful about how the pages are laid out. You know, you get the exciting bit as you turn the page. You know, the big double spreads. It's quite a technical thing to it. So I would definitely recommend getting someone to help you for the first time, for sure.
great. Yeah. I mean, you already mentioned the ley line, and I think this is because this is something where I think not that I could have written this, but I thought, oh, this is thematically, this is something that I really like. I like these.
Okay.
You know, I'm into the whole Nicholas Hawksmoor thing, the architect and the ley lines in London that connect his buildings.
Yeah.
So the ley line in the comic, I'm going to say a few words about it. It starts or ends, depends on where you start, at Queen Mary's College.
That's right.
In Mile End, right?
Yeah.
And then of course it goes through Nicholas Hawksmoor's St. Anne's Limehouse with a pyramid in the churchyard, and then through the Isle of Dogs that you already mentioned, and then through the Royal Naval College, the Queen's House, and then the General Wolfe statue in Greenwich in front of the observatory. And it ends at All Saints Church on Blackheath Common, which is now it's funny because you say you live near there, so
exactly
really
around the corner
to the ley line,
yeah.
And as I said, Hawksmoor's buildings have often been put on ley lines, basically in various stories and theories through London. You also include. On a side note, basically, you also include St. Paul's and the monument. They line or the line through them. They run
exactly. Yeah.
From the side,
Yeah. There's an interesting fact. I remember that when I discovered that link there, I remember absolutely getting goosebumps as I saw it for the first time on Google Maps. I thought, oh god, this is weird.
Yeah.
That's the first time I thought I was really onto something actually when I found that.
Right, but I love these things about London because you can find these connections and these stories, and you really think, oh, I'm onto something there. There's something behind it. It's not just made up, because you can connect certain places and and people. I really like that. So St. Paul's and the monument, both designed by Sir Christopher Wren, and Hawksmoor and Wren worked on the buildings in Greenwich on some of them.
Exactly.
So have you been familiar with these theories about ley lines and London ley lines, or did this also come to you when you were researching?
No, I was well aware that ley lines existed, and as you say, the Hawksmoor churches have been discussed in depth in many other books, including I don't know if you're familiar with Alan Moore from Hell.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Right, exactly. He connects them all together to make a pentagram.
I did this journey once, one day through London. I followed the route in, I think it's chapter 4 in From Hell. I started at Sir William Gull's house, and then I moved through. You
went through them, That's a long walk, actually. That one.
I did not walk the whole way. I took the bus a few times to get the feeling of a coach ride. I didn't want to take the underground. I had to take the underground like 1 or 2 times because it would have taken forever to.
That's a long walk. I've read about people doing it in two pieces.
Yeah, right. But it was fascinating. I felt like a complete lunatic. I thought some people must think I'm crazy, walking a pentagram through London. So for what reason? But it was exciting. But sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. Yeah.
No, that's absolutely fine. Yeah. So I was well aware of ley lines, and I was aware that there was a few of them. There's a famous one that goes through the Strand, and there's another one which I discovered called the Royal Line, which passes through even the Diana Fountain. Now it goes through from there. It goes through Buckingham Palace, the Victoria statue in front of Buckingham Palace. It goes across Big Ben. Where else? There's a King Alfred the Great statue in South London, and that's all connected. And that line crosses, kind of, if you like, my line, a very significant point as well, which is nice. It's almost like confirming that there's something there.
Right.
But when I started working on, when I read about that Omphalos, the spot I was talking about earlier, and then I noticed that there was something a short distance away. I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then the Hawksmoor Church, and then once you get 3 spots, it forms a line. So then I thought, oh, I wonder what happens if you extend it. And then it started connecting everything up, and that's when it it starts really getting exciting, because I think. And then I started looking around, researching everywhere.
Right.
And nobody really had spoken about this before. And so, that made it extra exciting that I might be actually finding something new, which was kind of, extra exciting,
Yeah, I mean, I love the whole area that you cover on the ley line and Limehouse and Greenwich, and I remember being very impressed by the mirrored buildings in the Royal Naval College in Greenwich when I was there for the first time. So if it's possible, one day we should do this walk together.
Absolutely, I do it. I do it normally a couple of times a year.
Yeah.
Weren't able to do it last year for obvious reasons. But yeah, I've done it maybe 4 or 5 times now. Each time with a new group of people. People really generally enjoy it. When was it? So not last year, the year before, I did it with a paranormal investigation group.
Right, you mentioned that in the appendix.
Yeah, that was fascinating. Yeah, so we did it with them, and we had a medium along with us, and she got some great. She was coming across all kinds of characters and telling us all kinds of interesting things going on. And I had to go with I forgot what they called. The divining rods. Sorry, the divining rods, and I had absolutely something happened to me that freaked me out because I was in control of them that time, and it definitely worked. So yeah, I mean, absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
Where did the idea come from to do the walk with a paranormal investigation team?
Well,
it was a great idea, but
I guess we'd done it 4 or 5 times, and then I just thought, you know what, is there something here? I wonder, because we spoke. There's several ley lines in London, and this is another one of them. And okay, so it's a theoretical line connecting a whole series of buildings, monuments, landmarks. But what actually is it? Is there energy on the line? Is there, magnetism that can be detected? So that's when I got in touch with a paranormal group saying, like, because I knew they use lots of instruments. So I thought, come along, let's do the walk and let's actually do measurements and see whether we can, detect anything out of the ordinary as we're walking along.
Yeah. And they did, as you say.
They absolutely did, yeah. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
They
Maybe
found
do that
something.
again, actually, yeah.
Yeah. And you also mentioned, I mean, you also go through the Greenwich foot tunnel, and and the ley line it crosses the Meridian, so
it crosses the Meridian, exactly. And also, interestingly enough, shall I talk about the various spots on the ley line? Because
yes, please do.
Okay, so one of John Dee's most famous books was this one here. It's called the Mona's Hieroglyphica, and it deals with this symbol, which was his own personal symbol, which he created, and this symbol takes into account. It explains the entire cosmos, everything about everything you ever want to know about the universe, and time, and everything is all encompassed in that one symbol. So if you read this book, you'll know everything there is to know about everything. But I just want to read you out the last line of his book because it's kind of interesting. You read this book; it's not very big, as you see, and it's very obscure. And at the end of it, you think, "Oh, what was that all about?" But the last line of the book is, "Here the vulgar eye will see nothing but obscurity and will despair considerably." So even John Dee acknowledges that once you've read the book, you're not going to understand anything. But yeah, so this is his symbol. And the thing that got me really excited on the ley line was when I was looking at the spot on the Isle of Dogs. Hopefully you can see this quite well here. Right, so this is the symbol, and this is a photograph of the, from taken from Google Maps, and you can kind of see that the can you see that? Well, you can see that the actual symbol there, the Mona's Hieroglyphica symbol, is actually laid out in the paths with the ley line running straight down the middle of it.
Yeah. If you have this photo, you can also send it to me, and I can include it in a better version for our viewers, maybe.
Absolutely, I will do that. Yeah, because this really brings it home to life. And this part of the Mona's Hieroglyphica symbol, and so this spot here is actually in Island Gardens, which is just on the other side of the foot tunnel. So as you go through the Greenwich foot tunnel, it's right there. And this part of the symbol here, where you get the 2 circles overlapping, that is known as the Vesica Pisces, the vessel of the fish. So it's a symbol that's been used throughout mythology to represent the fish. You know, like when you get the Jesus symbol, the fish, and it's also used to symbolize woman. Okay, the overlapping circles, and then so it's a fish, or used for a fish and a symbol, woman symbol. If you actually go there, in the middle of that circle, there's a statue, and that statue is of, it's actually called Woman and Fish.
Yeah,
and it is a big statue of a woman with a fish. And that's right slap bang in the middle of that circle, the Mona symbol. And going back to earlier when you were talking about St. Paul's, so Christopher Wren, greatest building is obviously St. Paul's Cathedral.
Yeah.
His other great monument is a monument by London Bridge, which was built to commemorate the Great Fire of London. And in mythology, you often get a dome and an obelisk together to represent man and woman. And you get it in Rome, you get it in Washington, you get it, you know, all the major cities, you know, and London is the St. Paul's and Monument.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, you know what, St. Christopher, if we join those two together with a line and extend it to see where it crosses this line, let's see where it crosses. And then I literally went on Google Maps, did a line, extended it, and then had to take, you know, I was in shock because it crosses it right on top of that statue, bizarrely enough. As you extend the line, it's like, I was like, oh my God, this is like absolutely bizarre. Yeah.
This is really bizarre. Yeah.
Really bizarre. Yeah. And it makes, you know, what is the chance of that? It's, you know, incredible.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that, you know, when you start getting things like that happen, I really thought, you know, we're onto something here. And then as you extend the line, and I'll send you these photos so you can include them. So we've got it passes through the pyramid, the Nicholas Hawksmoor pyramid, like literally right across the top of it. Then it goes up to Queen Mary's College. And what's interesting about Queen Mary's College is that up until the 1970s, I think it was, they actually had a nuclear reactor in there. You know, in the middle of London, they had a nuclear reactor. It was underneath Mile End Road. And it got moved out in the 1970s and taken to Stratford over there. And it was used for research purposes. But again, that was right on the ley line. If you then, you know, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. You know, a ley line's got a nuclear reactor on it.
How did you find out about that?
It's public information, actually. If you Google it, it's all there. Yeah, I mean, I think they kept it quiet at the time. They didn't want people knowing that they were living next to a nuclear reactor. But it was there, yeah. And then bizarrely, if you extend it down, you know, if you follow the line down south, you know, you get to the woman and fish statue, cross the river, and then the first building is the what is now Greenwich University. It used to be, before it was Greenwich University, it used to be the Royal Naval College. And strangely enough, in there, up until the 1990s, they also had a nuclear reactor in there that they used to train the nuclear submarine stuff. You know, and this is a UNESCO World Heritage Site building, Christopher Wren's masterpiece. And someone decided it would be a good idea to put a nuclear reactor in the basement. It's like absolute madness. When they took it out in the 1990s, kind of the locals didn't know it was there. They had to remove 270 tons of material when they removed it in the 90s. Exactly, yeah, because there was so much contamination. And that's now at the building where I go to university. Interesting. So if I start twitching or something like that, you know.
Yeah. So and I think you also mentioned that in the end, where do you prefer to start, in the north or in the south? I always start in the north and walk south, purely because at the end of it you end up in Blackheath, and there's brilliant pubs in Blackheath, so at the end of the walk you can go and have a nice drink and something to eat. Whereas if you end up in Mile End, nothing wrong with Mile End, but it's just not such a nice place to spend a couple of hours relaxing afterwards. So yeah, purely for that reason. I mean, you could do it both ways, but I always go south. And I think you mentioned that in All Saints Church in Blackheath there are 666 pews.
Yeah, that's exactly. I can show you a picture of that as well. Yeah, so in the old Ordnance Survey map, so when the building was, the church was built, it was about 1700. something like that. The first maps afterwards, they used to like, you know, provide a lot of detail. Yeah. So as you can see there, you see that All Saints Church, 666 seats. It's like, what, you know, take one away or add one, but you know, why would a church have 666 seats?
Great.
Yeah, very unusual.
Yeah.
So yeah, another weird thing there. Yeah.
Right.
I'll just show you one more page actually. Yeah. So the book was published in 2019, and then later on that year, for the very first time ever, I saw official confirmation that there is a ley line there. On Blackheath, they put up this sign to you know, just like a public information sign for the you know, tell people about Blackheath, and it mentions here that they call it the Grand Axis. That this church was built to mark the Grand Axis, and that was the first time ever I had seen any official acknowledgement. Yeah, that there was a, you know, there was a line that somebody had planned all this.
Some kind of confirmation. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I like to think that somebody in the council read my book and decided that they better acknowledge it. Maybe.
Yeah, so yeah, and as you said, when you worked there with the paranormal investigation team, were there some time anomalies in the foot tunnel? I mean, there's always the rumor.
there's a great rumor about that, isn't there? But no, we didn't get time anomalies, but the medium, as she was walking through there, right in the middle, she said she met a very old kind of a guy in a very old sailor uniform who she spoke with, who told her his name, told her his rank. Yeah, so yeah, he was standing right there in the middle. So
great. Yeah,
that was good. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, but, and yeah, she really kind of had to be forced through to get to the end of it. Actually, she felt a bit rough.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you have the strange time anomalies in the foot tunnel, and then there's the Meridian close by. And I also always think that time in London has basically its own law. It depends on it runs differently at various locations. So there was just interesting, just funny. So coming back to Dr. Dee for a moment. So there's this. You said that the basic starting point was this theory that he conjured a spirit at the Isle of Dogs, and so made the location the origin of the British Empire. That was the basic idea. So how exactly did it develop from there? You did discover this ley line, and then you said, I mean, the characters like St. Carter and things like that. How did you?
Yeah, so I started off. So then I think that was probably the first time I'd learned about Doctor John Dee. So he's a kind of strange character. A lot of people have heard of him. Some people have, some people haven't. A lot of the work he did was, you know, a lot of the good work he did. So he, for example, he helped translate Euclid's Elements of Geometry into English for the first time. He wrote the preface of that, you know, which was, you know, one of the most important books of, you know, modern mathematics. You know, it was his, you know, up until the early 20th century, the book with his prefacing was still being used in grammar schools up and down this country. You know, 300 years after he'd written them. So he'd done that. He'd written books on navigation, which then he went to Queen Elizabeth and said, you know, you need to go out to North America and claim what's rightfully yours. He'd found some evidence that King Arthur or King Arthur's relatives had already been out to what he called Atlantis, North America. And he was saying to Queen Elizabeth, you know, it's your birthright to go out there and claim this. And he told her what to do. He told them how to navigate. He told them where to go. He first coined the phrase British Empire. So, you know, he's a guy who's, you know, really important historically. But unfortunately, later on in his career, when he started dabbling in talking to angels and all that kind of stuff, yeah, he fell out of favor with the academics. And it seems that, you know, they thought, oh, okay, so all the good stuff that he'd done earlier, you know, kind of got forgotten, and which is like really unfortunate, real shame. But towards the end of his career, he went off with a guy called Edward Kelly, who was they went off to Prague, where Emperor Rudolph was very much into the occult and the eclectic, and anything to do with that. And they went and spent some time over there with him, spoke with angels, learnt the angel alphabet.
In Enochian, right? So
Enochian, exactly.
We have to do this talk in Enochian because I'm not too familiar.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, you can go on YouTube and hear people talking it.
Yeah, I know. I saw some.
You tried it. Sorry, yeah, exactly. So they learnt the alphabet. It was named after Enoch from the Bible, who was, I think he lived to be like 300 years old and was the last human to use the language. So they named it after him. But yeah, so then they were able to communicate with angels, and he kept copious notes, which are in the British Museum to this day. Detailing exactly what was said. This angel came along and said this. The angel Gabriel at one point actually presented him with a crystal, which you can go to the British Museum. It's right there, in fact. So if you go to the British Museum, you can see all the artifacts. Yeah, sorry.
Is that the one? There's also this ball, this glowing thing. Is that the
okay, so it's a bit debatable. There's one crystal of his which is kind of mounted in a silver chain, and that's in the Science Museum.
Okay.
And then and then in the British Museum he's got a crystal ball.
Yeah.
He's got a crystal ball. He's got the beautiful black obsidian mirror. His wax seals, and various other artifacts belonging to him. And they used to do this scrying, so they used to look in the mirror, and like John Dee couldn't never do it himself, so that's why he always had to have someone with him, which obviously left him open to be ripped off at certain times. Unfortunate. But yeah, so the scribes would tell them what they were seeing in the mirrors and the shadows and relay the information to him, and he used to write it all down. All that kind of stuff, anything linked with that part of his career, if you like, kind of gave him a bad reputation, which was really a real shame. And then so when he came back from Prague, he had a great library which he'd put together in Mortlake over in southwest London. And when he came back, it had been ransacked. All his books had been stolen, it had all been looted. It was a real disaster for him. So yeah, it was a real shame, actually. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So and then how and why did you decide to bring Christopher Marlowe and the whole School of Night into the story?
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
brought in very well, with all the. I'm not going to say too much for people who want to read it, but with all the hints at Shakespeare and his death and various people that are included. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah, because I mean, there's just so much fun you can have with that period because of the characters. Marlowe was a brilliant character. The mystery of his death. Do you know about? I'm not sure if you know about that. That he was allegedly. Do you know about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know about the way he was killed over there, in Deptford, and and there's all there's all these stalk questions about. The authorship question about Shakespeare's, who really was Shakespeare? Because very little is known about Shakespeare. Hardly anything. We know nothing about him. There's none of his original writing. We don't know anything about. So you can have a really good play around with that. Some people say it was Marlowe. Some people Bacon, Edward de Vere. There's all kind of people that have been touted to have been Shakespeare. And the School of Night apparently was this real secret society. So back in the day, then it was very heretical to talk about modern science, and the head of the Church of England was the monarch. So if you said anything bad about the church, it was treasonable. If you said God didn't exist and debated that, you could be tried for treason. So the School of Night, as far as I can make out, was a secret society brought together to discuss modern science, literature, art, philosophy, and it had as you say, Marlowe. It had Bacon in Walsingham, Walter Raleigh, and it kind of seems a bit bizarre to me that you would do all that without having John Dee in it.
Yeah, I was wondering, but he's not officially mentioned.
No, he's not officially mentioned, but I don't know who is officially mentioned. There's no documentation, so I just think that it couldn't possibly have happened without him, and if anything, he was one who would have started it.
Yeah. So, and then there's the modern day story with Sam Carter. So how did you come up with that? And were there some inspirations for the characters like Sam or Sophie or Guru, real life inspirations?
Actually, Guru there was, yeah. Guru was a friend of mine who I used to work with, strangely enough. So
does he know about it?
No, actually, no. When I started writing it, you know, say it was 10 years before it came out. I'd long since lost contact with him, unfortunately. Maybe I should try and track him down and let him know. But yeah, that kind of became the fun part, because then you've got all this research, you've got all these facts, figures. It's like, how do you make this into an interesting story? And the fact is, because the ley line covered, you know, old Elizabethan type buildings, monuments, but it also had, you know, nuclear reactors on it. It also passed through Canary Wharf. So, for example, the pyramid on the top of the main Canary Wharf building, if you extended that down so that it actually formed a building at ground level, the southwest corner of it would sit right on the ley line. So, you know, there were lots of modern elements along this ley line as well. So that gave me the real opportunity to write the story any way I wanted, really. And I wanted to include all the real facts, all the real characters, all the locations, but make it into an interesting story.
Yeah.
So, as you say, without giving too much away, the two do align, crossover.
Yeah.
Hopefully provide an interesting story. So you learn a lot, and it's good fun story as
well. I'm going to show, there were these two postcards with the comic. I'm going to show once again. That's John Dee and Sam Carter.
Very interesting moment, that one. That's
very interesting moment. Yeah, it's a double page in the comic, and I reread it just before our talk yesterday. I read it again to get everything back. So yeah, that was nice. When I read it, it's another thing I wanted to. You also mentioned that there was this pub when you with the Masonic symbol.
That's right. Yeah.
Do you remember what it was?
That is right outside Cross Harbour Station. So as you come outside Cross Harbour Station and walk across the road, there's a pub there called the George. Yeah, that was another. Actually, I think that was the original trigger for. That's how I then discovered it. Yeah, now you mention it, that was the first thing I saw, and then discovered about the envelope. But yeah, if you the George pub, the pub sign, it's actually got the Freemason symbols, the well-known Freemason symbols, right there on the sign outside. And I was like, you know, at that point I was interested in Freemasonry and, you know, secret societies and all that kind of thing. And when I saw that, I thought, you know, what the hell is that? And yeah, and that pub, which is just slightly off the ley line, unfortunately, would have been nice if it had been right on it.
Right.
But yeah, apparently that is where the local Freemasons meet, and they've got a temple in the back room there. So yeah, it's like, you know, this East End pub with a Freemason temple in the back room.
Yeah, we need to have a pint there once it is possible again.
Yes.
I want to go.
They do a fantastic Sunday roasting as well.
Oh yeah. Okay, good. That's good to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, you already mentioned that you then basically you together with Tony Lee, you did the comic version. And can you tell me a bit about how Mariela was part of the team? I want to show one more of her drawings.
Absolutely.
The wonderful John Dee. It's not very good on camera, but you can see. I'm going to put it into the talk.
Yeah, so she really is great. So again, this is one of these bizarre coincidences. I remember I was queuing up to go into the Green Note. It's a jazz club up in Camden. And I was in the queue, and there was a guy standing in the queue in front of me, completely random. And because we were in the queue together, we started talking. It turned out he was he taught English, and then for some reason I started talking to him about, oh yeah, I'm kind of thinking of writing this book, and he's like, what's it about? Oh, it's about John Dee. And it's like, oh, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm a massive fan of John Dee. I love John Dee. He knew everything about John Dee.
Great, yeah.
Yeah, his name was Joseph, and he's like, okay, that's like incredible coincidence. And I said to him, oh yeah, I'm thinking of you know, making it into a graphic novel. And he's like, oh, I know a brilliant artist, Mariela Malova. And he introduced me to her, and she ended up drawing a book. So again, completely random. I mean,
Yeah.
this entire book, start to finish, has been, basically a constant stream of incredible coincidences.
Yeah.
And,
But that's a nice way. It's better than having a plan and then it doesn't work out or something like
absolutely,
that. So,
absolutely. I love it when it happens. Every time I get a new
right.
one, it's like, oh, I love it. Yeah. I don't know if you know about Jung's theory of synchronicity. About when these coincidences happen to you, it's the universe that is telling you you're on the right track.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And the more you look out for them, the more they're there. And it's like, yeah, wonderful.
That's true. Yeah. So you were on the right track, and you.
Yeah, absolutely. On this case.
Yeah. And one thing, I mean, I do believe that we kind of have a same taste of music. We wrote a bit about it on social media.
Sure. Exactly.
Prog rock and some of the heavier stuff. There's a bar Fugazi included. Is this a real bar? Is it a reference to Marillion?
Yeah, that's very good actually. No, it's there's no bar Fugazi there, but if you go, Mariela's drawn it. There was a restaurant there, it's an Argentinian restaurant. That's what I think. But yeah, I'm a massive Marillion fan, always have been, and so I thought, if I'm going to publish this book, I want to get a little homage into the greatest band ever. So yeah, bar Fugazi. But actually, it's a strange coincidence because that song, well, the album Fugazi and the song Fugazi, the first line of the song is vodka intimate, an affair with isolation in a Blackheath cell. So they refer Blackheath. So there you go. So and bar Fugazi is in Blackheath.
Yeah.
And they refer to vodka intimate, and I made vodka intimate as a cocktail that they're drinking when they're in the bar.
Yeah.
So in that one frame, I've got three different Marillion references.
Never.
And I was hoping that the band would invite me to up on stage with them and talk about it.
That would be great. That would be great. Are you more? Do you like them throughout the whole career? I mean, I'm a huge fan of Steve Hogarth, but many people say it's not my kind of.
Yeah, I prefer Fish era. The 4 albums. But I love the Steve Hogarth period as well. I see them every opportunity I can. I saw them at the Albert Hall last concert. In fact, I've seen them there twice now. I go see them every time I can. I love them.
Me too.
Yeah, and just mention Fish's last album. Have you heard Fish's last album? Welshman. Of course, John. It's absolute masterpiece. Yeah, it's just. Even Marillion's last album, even after all these years, 30 years, their last album, absolute masterpiece. Fish's last album, masterpiece. So, they're just getting better and better.
Yes, I agree. It's not, I mean, if you look back, there's always one album or the other album where you think, it was okay. There are better ones. But in the end, they still
there, absolutely.
They create very good stuff. Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely.
So is Dark Lines of London going to be continued? Is there going to be, I mean, you could continue the story without giving away too much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping to be truthful, right now I'm working on what I really want to do, which would be the ideal. I'm working with a script consultant trying to adapt it for TV series.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So that would be wonderful, whether that would happen or not. But that's kind of what I'm working at the moment. But as you say, I've already got book 2 and book 3, the ideas lined up, ready to go. So if I'm concentrating on trying to get this script done. Just the first episode, which is I think we're on to revision about 25 at the moment. It's really tricky business. But yeah, if that doesn't happen, book 2 and book 3 will definitely be coming out.
Great.
Yeah, and beyond, hopefully.
Looking forward to that. Any other projects apart from Dark Lines of London that you write?
Well, yeah, I've got. It's funny actually. Being at university, obviously, doing creative writing, so I'm getting lots of opportunity to try out different things. So I'm currently working on a short play, which is. It always occurred to me, obviously John Dee and William Shakespeare around at the same time, and there's lots of evidence that William Shakespeare. Based his Prospero from Tempest character on John Dee. There's so many things there similar. So I'm kind of at the moment. I'm writing a short play of the two of them meeting and the conversation they would have. So that's kind of fun. And strangely enough, the other idea I've had, which I'm playing around with at the moment, is they have a lot of musicals in the West End. The music of Michael Jackson, the music of whoever it is, this, that, and the other. And I'm thinking, you know what? If I could write a musical based on the first 4 albums of Marillion.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
that would be an interesting story if you just take the lyrics. They would make it.
Exactly. So I'm kind of like playing around with that at the moment, and like ideas are starting to come. That's at very early stages.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you like. You're the first person I've told, in fact. So if you approve.
Let me know if I can publish it, or if you want this piece to be left out of the talk. If it's still
No, leave it in. Leave it in.
Okay. Well, I would go and see that, definitely.
You would, yeah. Excellent.
And I think
1 ticket sold.
And I think the members of the band and Fish, they would also be, they would like the idea. I think.
I think so too. Absolutely.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I really like the idea.
Good stuff.
So yeah, I can recommend everybody to buy and read Dark Lines of London. It's a very good comic, and as we heard, we can already look forward to the TV series adaptation, or to the next to part 2 and 3.
That's okay. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, and then I'm interested if you find more ley lines. It's just so interesting to find this.
Yeah, I'm always on the look.
Yeah. So, Stephen, do you have a favorite place in London? Is there something?
Ooh, favorite place? I guess South Bank, maybe. I love it. Just walking along the South Bank all the way from Tower Bridge all the way. So many sites, so many. It's funny actually because even back in Shakespeare's time, John Dee's time, the South Bank was if you like, the City of London was on the north, and the South Bank was where you went to have all the fun,
right?
Like where the theatres were, all the bars, because it was outside the jurisdiction of the city. And still to this day, it's got that kind of feeling about it. It's like really exciting as you walk along there. There's so many, it's just a great fun place.
Yeah.
So it's good to keep that tradition. Yeah. So I guess South Bank.
Yeah.
Nice long walk along the South Bank. Have a nice drink.
Me too.
Oh, next year when the pubs are open, can't wait.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. I hope so too. So you already said that you were born in London and that you lived there, and so how do you personally view London? Has it shaped you, and if yes, in which way? Can you say a bit about that, or is it just the place where you live and nothing else?
I guess so. From an early, from 14, 15, 16, we always used to hang out in the West End, go up there. Back then, you'd buy a bus ticket. They used to call them a red bus rover. As a little kid, you'd get a bus and you'd go out 9 o'clock in the morning and travel all around London and come back home like 6 o'clock at night. And your mum wouldn't be worried or anything like that. It was very different times back then. It used to be great. I mean, I remember growing up in the East End of London. There was still even a lot of bomb sites left over from the war. You could go exploring, through building sites, and it was exciting times actually. So yeah, without a doubt, London has shaped me. It's funny actually because so many of my friends have lived abroad, or people abroad live in London, and people move around. And it's suddenly now at my age, I won't tell you exactly what my age is, but north side of 50. I was born in London and still live there, and I've lived there my entire life, and I've never really lived anywhere else. And something kind of crept up on me, and I'm thinking, oh God, I should really give somewhere else a go, I guess. But who knows whether that will happen.
I mean, if you've got everything you want and you need there. That's always what I think when I'm.
No, you're right. Absolutely, exactly. I guess that's what I was saying. Yeah, it's all right to go away for a short break, but I do miss it. I need to get back.
I always my last question in the talk is always, but it's your choice to answer it or not. Can you name 3 Londoners from throughout history that you would love to have dinner or a drink with?
Oh, great one. Let's have a little think. Michael Caine. I
Oh,
assume
yeah.
he's a Londoner. Michael Caine. Love Michael Caine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you like him. Ian Wright,
Mhm.
the hero of mine. Do you know Ian Wright? He used to play for Arsenal. He was record goal scorer at Arsenal. He's still on Match of the Day. Absolute legend because I'm an Arsenal supporter.
Mhm.
And struggling for a third. Can you believe that?
I would have imagined Doctor John Dee.
I could have said John Dee, but I was trying to not be so obvious. Okay, but I'm going to go.
No, whoever you want to mention.
No, John Dee would be great actually.
Okay.
So yeah, in fact, the 3 of those together at a single dinner party, that would be really interesting.
I think
Michael Caine, Ian Wright, and John Dee.
there would be an interesting combination if all three of them, if we had all three of
Would
them.
be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah, that would be really fun. So yeah, that's a good choice. I think about collecting all the answers and then see who got them. I think right now it's Shakespeare. Everybody, although he's not from London, people consider him a London.
I see. That's the thing. Exactly. Yeah, he's not from. That's right. That's why I didn't pick him.
Yeah. But that's the funny thing in general. I mean, people often say, I don't know, Dickens or whoever, and quite often it's people that were not born in London, but of course who lived
associated with London.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think Shakespeare.
Even Christopher Marlowe kind of associated with London, but he was from Canterbury.
Right. Yeah. But I think Dee was a Londoner, right? He was born.
Dee was born very near me, in fact, Tower Ward, so right by the Tower of London.
Yeah,
so, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Which is now Tower Hamlets. But yeah, that was the the easternmost periphery of London. Yeah, so
right.
Welsh parents, but he was definitely born in London.
Yeah,
so he counts.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much, Stephen. Anything you want to mention that I forgot about Dark Lines of London or Dr. Dee?
No, I think we covered lots there, didn't we? And it absolutely flew by. Actually, I've got to say, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. And I hope we didn't give away too much, but I think we managed. So people are still interested in reading it without knowing about it. So.
Absolutely, yeah. Lots of secrets in there, yeah.
Right, yeah. So I can only recommend it. I'm going to show it once again. This is Dark Lines of London by Stephen Saleh and Tony Lee and Mariela Malova, right? Yeah. So
exactly, yeah.
And thank you for being my guest today. And thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. I wish you all the best with your creative writing studies and with the next projects. And thank you very much, Stephen.
Thanks very much.